Craig Breslow has an insane amount of power with the Boston Red Sox, and it's pretty scary.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. I'm your host, Gabby Maljanian, former ESPN social media associate, and currently the host of the Boston Balling podcast as well. And I'm here to bring you the latest in all things Boston Red Sox, Monday through Friday, straight to your favorite podcast feed. And you want to know the best part? It's free. So make sure you tune in because Locked On is here for you every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. Happy Friday. Welcome to the show. Red Sox were off yesterday, so they couldn't hurt us with a loss, but they start a big series tonight against the Astros with Jake Bennett slated to make his Major League debut. Really excited for him. This is a guy who's been putting up really competitive numbers in AAA Worcester. So I'm really excited to see what he can do up at the Major League level. And if he pitches well, he could make things really interesting for the Red Sox rotation when guys like Sonny Gray and Garrett Crochet start coming back from injury. But on today's show, I'm going to be primarily discussing Craig Breslow and the amount of control and power that he has over everything with this Boston Red Sox organization, as well as if the trade deadline were to be today, would the Red Sox be sellers? And what's up with Roman Anthony? So obviously there's been a lot that has come out over the last few days in regards to Alex Cora and some members of his coaching staff getting fired, and Craig Breslow and the influence he had on all of that. And Sam Kennedy came out and said Alex Cora's firing was Craig Breslow's idea. We are in full support of him and we stand behind him. Now, obviously, the position that Craig Breslow is in with this Red Sox organization is meant to have a lot of power, but the way that Craig Breslow goes about it isn't always the best because he's not personable. He doesn't come across like he really cares about the fans or even the players in terms of not even being willing to let the players ask questions after Alex Cora was let go. And on the exterior, that's kind of a bad look. And even a lot of people around Major League Baseball have talked about just his personality not really having that personalized feel. And while the personality isn't everything, it is certainly part of it. And basically, it came out that Craig Breslow had expressed some concerns with the hitting coaching staff last season and suggested potentially making a change in that regard, but Alex Cora wasn't about it. So then he basically said, well, if you're going to move on from the hitting coaches, then you're also going to have to fire me too. So I guess he wasn't about it. And Alex Bregman was another advocate for keeping the hitting coaches around. And it's interesting because Craig Breslow obviously valued Bregman's opinion enough to where he went with what he wanted and didn't go and replace the hitting coaches last year. But obviously he didn't care enough about Alex Bregman's opinion to really try hard to bring him back this season. So I thought that was definitely interesting. And also they brought up examples of David Hamilton and how he's playing now with the Brewers compared to his time with the Red Sox. And they've also brought up Christian Campbell and basically Craig Breslow feeling like Alex Cora's staff wasn't capable of developing guys at the major league level. And it's interesting because you don't really see other organizations take the approach of we're going to develop guys at the major league level. We're going to teach them fundamentals and were going to really help them continue the development process they started in the minors. The majority of organizations, when you look at them, the developmental process happens when they're in the minors, and then when they come up to the major league team, ideally then they're ready to contribute at the major league level, and they're not really focused on development. They're just focused on winning baseball games. But it seems like the approach the Red Sox now are taking is continuing to help develop guys at the major league level, and it didn't sound like Breslow felt confident in Alex Cora's coaching staff being able to do that as effectively as they wanted. So Alex Cora and a few other coaches were let go. And another thing that was interesting was there was a source close to Craig Breslow that was basically saying that he wanted to fire everybody that was there prior to him coming in. Now that, if that's true, shows how much power Craig Breslow actually has, because this is his team now, it feels like, and everybody else in the front office is going with what Craig Breslow wants to do. And it was clear that he wanted to completely revamp this organization. He hired Andrew Bailey to be on this coaching staff. He also hired Justin Willard on the pitching side. Those are his coaches that he chose to bring in. Alex Cora and his hitting coaches were here before Breslow was hired. So therefore, it checks out if Breslow feels like he wants to have all of that power and all that control, that he wouldn't want to have those coaches here, and he would want the opportunity to hire his own coaches to take over this team. He clearly has a vision for how he wants this organization to operate, and the front office is ready to comply with that. Another example of why he holds so much weight and so much power, because obviously Alex Cora was here for a long time. He's found success with the Boston Red Sox. He's widely known to be a very well-liked and well-respected manager who does his job very well. And Craig Breslow comes in here and is not afraid to move on from him, even though he's an established manager with the Boston Red Sox. So that part alone is enough to say, wow, clearly Craig has a vision, and anybody who gets in the way of that is done. Another example of this is he basically undid a lot of the moves that Chaim Bloom had made when he was here. So essentially going into this season, just 13 of the 29 players, which is 45%, who stepped on the field for the Red Sox this year were part of the organization when Bloom was the head of baseball operations. Just 9 of those players, which is 31%, had reached the big leagues in some capacity before Bloom got let go. So obviously a lot of the roster changed, and some key players that Breslow moved on from were Alex Verdugo, who Chaim Bloom had acquired in the Mookie Betts trade in 2020, and then traded Alex Verdugo to the Yankees for Richard Fitz, Greg Weisser, and Nicholas Judas. Blaze Jordan, who was a 2020 draft pick by Chaim, he traded to the St. Louis Cardinals last year for Steven Matz. Then Louis Perales, who came in as an international free agent in 2021, he traded him to the Nationals for pitcher Jake Bennett. Plus, there's also other minor leaguers and prospects from the 21 to 23 drafts and international signing periods that were moved to acquire various pitchers and bullpen help. So a lot of the players that Chaim Bloom brought in here with the intention of them developing within the Red Sox system and coming up eventually and contributing at the major league level, Craig Breslow came in and said, guess what? That's not part of my vision, so we're moving on from them. There's also been major changes in the front office as well, with a lot of restructuring with job titles, roles, and personnel since Craig Breslow got here. And behind the scenes, there are differences in how the team trains and develops players, particularly in this overhauled pitching program that basically was addressed when Breslow got here. So this is very much the approach that Craig Breslow is choosing to take because they're in win now mode. Breslow went into an interview at one point and basically said, you know, the biggest difference in how we're doing things now compared to how they were doing things prior is because we're less focused on the future and more about focused on this team right now winning at the highest level. when Chaim Bloom was here, his job primarily was to revamp the farm system and cut payroll. And that was a lot of what he did. And he thrived in that environment of being able to bring in some key prospects that the Red Sox could try to develop in their system and bring them up. And then Craig Breslow in various trades dumped a lot of those prospects. So clearly Craig Breslow's influence is very strong, and it's become super apparent that he is the guy who has all the say in how this organization is run, and it's basically Craig's world and everybody's just living in it. And whether that's a good or bad thing, I think we're going to find out over the course of this season in particular, because this was a season after they made the playoffs. They made a lot of promises after trading Rafael Devers. Now he's moved on from the coaches that were here before he got here. So now the pressure is on for the team to start performing, or else Craig Breslow may be in the hot seat in terms of not being in his role anymore after this season, or having to make some serious changes, because he clearly has a vision, and anything that challenges him or gets in his way is going to be out the door. And I get that every president of baseball operations is different and the vision might be different, but you have to be effective in that vision and you have to make the smartest and right moves. So we'll find out very soon if Craig's moves are good enough to make this team a contender for the rest of the season. But coming up, speaking of the rest of the season, if the trade deadline were to be today, would the Red Sox be buyers or sellers? The NBA playoffs are in full swing and every possession matters. If you're looking to get even closer to the action, FanDuel has a great offer to get you started. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's right. Turn $5 into $150 in bonus bets just for getting started. You can check stats, trends, and matchups before making your picks, which makes the whole experience feel a lot more informed. It's a really easy app to navigate, and it makes playoff basketball even more engaging from start to finish. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel, play your game. You can win lots of money on FanDuel, I'm telling you, and especially because the playoffs have so many teams, there's so much unpredictability. You can take chances and still win lots of money. Bet on some of the underdogs. Why not? Also, don't forget to check out the Everydayer Club for ad-free episodes and access to a group chat with me and other listeners of this show. Tap the link in the show notes or go to lockedonredsox.supercast.com. Well, we have reached the end of April officially. It is now May, so we are now in the second month of the Major League Baseball season. And for the month of April, the argument of it's early always applies because April is so incredibly early with how many games they play. And at the beginning of May, you can still say, yeah, it's early, but for how long can that argument go on for? Because this Red Sox team has now been put under a microscope. This was a team that going into the season, people had high hopes for, especially because of the rotation and how that was going to be built out. And when it came to the offense, people still felt like they maybe were missing a big bat to add to the heart of that lineup. And so far, the offense just hasn't been able to deliver at the capacity that the Red Sox have wanted them to, and we're hoping that they would. And the starting rotation certainly hasn't lived up to expectations overall either. So the question's now going to be, what direction do the Boston Red Sox go in? If things continue the way that they're going, and say the Red Sox continue to lose a lot of games and they don't start to get back on track, the question's then going to be, do they start to think about selling players because they don't necessarily feel like they can make a push this year? Because if the Red Sox decide that they're going to be sellers, there are players that they can move on from. If they decide they're going to be buyers at the trade deadline, then they definitely need one of the outfielders to be involved in a trade. Now, my biggest worry, because this is something that Craig Breslow has done before, is that they wait a little bit too long. Like, teams are already starting to make trades. The trade market's heating up sooner than ever this year, and I think it's because a lot of teams are performing significantly worse than they thought they were going to, so therefore they're feeling like they have to start making some changes. So the trade market is definitely active right now, and I'm sure that Craig Breslow has been making some calls or at least trying to see what's available out there. But a lot of what he's been saying in his interviews has been, we have really talented players, we just need to play better. Okay. And what if that doesn't happen? Because what I'm worried about is him dragging that excuse out for too long and just saying, yeah, we need to play better baseball. Basically saying, it's not about making drastic changes. Like, we can win with this team. We just need to get back on track. And a couple of the players have said that too. Carlos Narvaez, Roman Anthony have said that they felt like this team can win the World Series. But unless guys start performing, how do we feel confident in that? And I would say, well, this team wasn't built to win the World Series, and that wasn't the goal for this year. Then why did the front office say it was? After a playoff appearance last year, them saying, our goal is to win the AL East and make a run to a World Series title. Okay. Like, then why not try to build a team that you feel like can do that? So my biggest worry would be that Craig Breslow lets too much time pass to where they dig themselves too much of a hole. So then he doesn't end up going out and acquiring a big piece that could help the team right now to give them a boost to start winning some more games, to put them in that highest contender category, to the point where it becomes too late and then they aren't turning things around. So then they have to be sellers because Craig Breslow keeps waiting and holding on to hope that things will get better, because that's definitely something we've seen from him before. But if the Red Sox decide they're going to be buyers at the deadline, they have to acquire a steady infielder, a guy who's going to really step up. And I like the idea of Caleb Duran, and obviously Marcelo Meyer is still developing and trying to perfect his game a little bit more, and that's great. But a win now team needs to have another established hitter in that lineup, because as Caleb Duran continues to try to improve and find his groove and figure out what kind of player he's going to be, that's not necessarily a player that you can trust on a playoff roster. So that's where the whole issue is do they want to ride it out with the young players? That's fine if they do, but that would basically be admitting, okay, this team isn't quite there yet. We're going to give these young guys a chance, and we should probably trade away some of the guys maybe on aging contracts or that are getting a bit older. And then in that case, then we can allow the younger players to develop without as much of the pressure on them, because they are not feeling like they have to win all these games because this team isn't fighting for the playoffs. That is a route they could go, where they could say, okay, we're going to allow Duran and Marcelo to really excel so that they can be superstars in the future. And we're going to invest more in the future of this team. And then we're going to start trading away players that could help win now teams. An example of one of those players could be Sonny Gray, who is in a contract right now that doesn't necessarily have to bring him back next year. A team that's looking to win now could benefit from a couple months of Sonny Gray if he pitches well upon returning from his injury, because part of this does have to do with the value that some of these players will have, because if they're not playing well, then it's going to be hard for Breslow to move some of these guys because they won't have that value, and it'll be hard to convince him or other teams that that player is worthy of being traded, because Breslow won't want to trade them if he's not feeling like he's getting the return he wants, and other teams might not want to give up what they'd have to give up to take on that type of player. So assuming Sonny Gray comes back from injury and he's able to perform, he could be a player that the Red Sox consider moving on from this season. Another player that falls into that category, as much as it pains me to say because he has been tremendous as a closer for this team, is Aroldis Chapman. If you're trying to set your team up for success in the future. It doesn't necessarily make sense to hang on to Chapman when you could go to other options in the pen, and a team looking to make a playoff push could again benefit from a couple months of Chapman out of their bullpen. And his value's plenty high, especially last year. There were a lot of teams asking about him at the trade deadline. Craig Breslow decided to hang on to all these players because he felt like they were going to make a playoff push, and they did make the postseason last year. But if this is a team in which things are really starting to go downhill, maybe you consider moving on from Chapman, and maybe you consider moving on from Wilson Contreras too, an older player who, yes, has been really good and has been one of the most consistent hitters for this Red Sox team this year, but may get good value in return. Young players that can be part of the future of this organization. So those are players that maybe the Red Sox consider moving on from if they are not contending. Regardless of if they're buyers or sellers, they do need to figure out the Trevor Story situation, either move him to second base or try to move on from him in some capacity. I doubt they'll be able to trade him because he really doesn't have much value at all right now, which is tough, but they might have to just accept that there is not really a spot for him on this team anymore because he just continues to struggle, and maybe they move on from him and they give Christian Campbell another chance. This is just something that I've been throwing out there as an example. Or maybe they move Cedar Rafaela to the infield. Maybe they move him to second base and they put Marcelo Meyer at shortstop. Now, obviously, that wouldn't be ideal because Cedar should be staying in center field. But if they truly feel like they can't have Trevor Story taking up space anymore on the roster, it's something they could consider. If they're going to be sellers or if they're going to be buyers, they should be moving on from one of their outfielders, whether that be Yoshida or Duran. Jarren Duran is still struggling to find some consistency right now. There's so much pressure on him, and we know he's dealt with a lot of things off the field in the last few seasons. So for him, it may be beneficial to move on and go to an organization where there's not as much pressure as there is in Boston, because we know Boston is you need to perform or you're going to get your head ripped off type of organization from the fan base. And I think he feels a lot of that pressure, and he might perform better elsewhere. And because he still has the versatility in his game, he could be a sell to other teams of, okay, we could take a flyer on Jarren Duran because maybe a change of scenery will help his offense to elevate itself a little bit more. And even if he struggles out of the gate, he still has other aspects of his game that he can provide. So regardless of if they're going to be buyers or sellers at the trade deadline this year, it feels like a necessity to move on from one of those outfielders, because it's just going to continue to get more and more difficult to keep platooning guys and rotating them through. So that's something that feels like it needs to happen. And I'm sure they'll start fielding calls on all of them, but the likelihood of a guy like Wilyer Abreu getting moved is slim, because he's been one of the team's best hitters, and defensively, he's a two-time Gold Glove outfielder, so I don't think they'll want to move on from him. Cedar Rafaela, they obviously believe in because they extended him, so it would likely be Yoshida or Duran. It's just a matter of, okay, which one of them would draw more interest right now, and what kind of value they could get back in return. Because if they move on from Yoshida, they probably would have to take on a lot of that contract still anyway, so it wouldn't necessarily probably save them money. But either way, they're going to have to figure out that outfield situation. But if the season were to continue to go this way and the trade deadline were to be tomorrow, you have to feel like this is a team that would go in the direction of selling, because then it wouldn't feel like they're going to be contending. But it's still so early in the season, and if they start to turn things around quickly and convince people that they have a chance to make a playoff push, then maybe they are buyers, and maybe they just acquire that big bat that's clearly needed at the trade deadline. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But coming up, what's up with Roman Anthony and what's causing his early season struggles? If you're looking for tickets to any live event, whether that's a sporting event, comedy show, you name it, Game Time is 100% the place for you to get tickets to these events. The Game Time app gives fans the advantage with constant innovation. It's how you unlock amazing tickets and experiences in just a few taps. It's simple to use. The game time guarantee means you get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time at the best price. And here's the best part. Fees are included in the price you see. So what you see is what you pay, period. What I love about it is the seat views feature, because you can actually see the panoramic view from your exact seat before you buy, so that you know it's not obstructed or anything like that. 2 taps and it's done. No stress, no hidden fees, just great seats in minutes. That's what makes it so easy to decide last minute to hit a game. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Roman Anthony is struggling to start the season for this Boston Red Sox team, and there's a lot on him right now, a lot riding on him, because obviously he was the top prospect in all of Major League Baseball for a reason before he got called up. So he's feeling some internal pressure, I'm sure, in that regard, because he only got called up for the last couple months of the season last year, and then he got hurt, so he didn't get to play in that wild card series with the Red Sox. So in the grand scheme of things, this kid only has a few months of Major League Baseball experience under his belt. And it's not really fair for people to start having conversations about him being a bust right now when he's still getting himself acclimated to Major League Baseball. So that's one aspect of it, is he probably has the outside noise of, well, I was the top prospect in baseball. I was so hyped up. I had a good World Baseball Classic. Everybody's really excited about me. So I need to step up and perform. So that's definitely going through his head. Another aspect of all of this is that he signed a contract extension with this Red Sox team. And when you sign a contract extension at a young age like that, you're feeling the pressure, because now he's saying, well, I have to live up to that contract that I was given. This organization trusts me and believes in me and sees me as the face of their franchise for years to come. So I need to show that I was worthy of that, and that they don't need to regret giving me that big contract. So that's another factor in the pressure that he's most likely facing. And number 3, they're putting a lot of pressure on a 21-year-old to basically be the face of this franchise. And obviously, many guys on this team need to step up, but with the way that this Red Sox team is built right now, they are relying on Roman to basically be the face of the offense and be the guy who's propelling that offense through the hard times now. And it's not fair for a kid who's still learning and still navigating his way in the league to have to feel that kind of pressure of saying, well, if I fail, the entire team's going to fail because everything's riding on me. So the front office didn't put him in the best spot by putting that type of pressure on him. So there are 3 major reasons why he could be feeling a lot of pressure. And that has a lot to do with probably why he started off as slow as he has. Currently on the season, he's batting .208 with a .339 on base percentage, .292 slugging percentage, and .631 OPS. He has 96 at-bats, 11 runs scored, 20 hits, just 1 home run and 2 stolen bases. And the home run power was something about his game in the minor leagues that we saw a lot of, that he's still working on unlocking at the major league level. Now, he's still hitting the ball hard because he is in the 85th percentile in average exit velocity right now. So the issue isn't really that he's not hitting the ball hard. It's just that he's not swinging at the right pitches. Some of his swing decisions just haven't been that great because his bat speed is still in the 92nd percentile. So he's definitely showing that he has that raw power ability, and that's something we're waiting to see come out a little bit more from him. But the primary issue is that he's in just the 24th percentile in strikeout percentage and the 23rd percentile in whiff percentage. So he's just straight up swinging and missing at a lot of pitches that he's seeing. He's in the 90th percentile in walk percentage, which shows that he is that disciplined, patient hitter that we're so used to seeing. That's been talked about a lot, and that I personally saw from him when he was in Worcester, was that plate discipline of being patient and feeling like you can see him go up to the plate and feel like he's going to work the count and he might work a walk. So he is still walking at a high rate, which is good. But the tough thing is that he's only swinging at 53.3% of the strikes he sees, which is the 5th lowest in Major League Baseball. So basically what the problem is that because he's only swinging at 53.3% of pitches in the zone, that means he's being a little too selective. He's only swinging at 24.9% of pitches outside the zone, which is good, but he is chasing a little bit more than we would like, and he's just being a little bit too disciplined. Like he's letting pitches down the middle go, staring at fastballs right down the middle of the plate. And it's hard for him to recognize some of that because he has struggled to hit against off-speed pitches. And that's one of the biggest aspects of his game that I've been wanting to see him work on is his improvement against not only left-handed pitching, but against off-speed pitches in general. And so that's something that we've seen that's caused him problems. And now as a result of that, he's not always distinguishing between the fastball and the off-speed pitches, and some of the pitches right down the middle that he should be swinging at, he's holding back on because he's being a little bit too disciplined. So obviously you don't want to go the opposite extreme and swing too much because then you're just going to keep racking up the strikeouts and you're not going to get on base a lot. But you need to find that happy medium, and I think that happy medium is what Roman's still working on. Now that's definitely fixable as he progresses through his major league career and he starts to see more major league pitching. So it's not something I'm concerned about right now in the long term, but it is definitely something to keep an eye on is, okay, what do we need to see more of from Roman? He's struggled significantly too defensively with his throwing accuracy, characterized by some as yips or a mental block, but there's a mechanical issue that might be going on with his lower body footwork that prevents him from maximizing his arm strength. So on the defensive side of the ball, we've definitely seen some struggles from him too. He's gotten a little bit better in terms of those arm issues, but he's just hitting the ball into the ground a little too often too when he is making contact, contributing to a lower than ideal production rate. So the location of where the ball is going and also him being a little bit too disciplined are causing his struggles. And I'm sure defensively with the arm problems, I'm sure he's feeling all that pressure from that as well. So hopefully he's able to turn things around soon. I still very much believe he's going to be an absolute superstar in this league who's just struggling right now. And I'm excited to see how things go for him down the road. But I appreciate everybody for tuning in to Locked On Red Sox and making it your first listen of every single day. Make sure you subscribe and follow the show on any podcast platform so you get all of the latest episodes. Plus, if you want to follow me on social media, you can follow me on Twitter at Gabby Maljanian or on Instagram at Gabby_Maljanian10. Plus, you can follow the show on Twitter at LO_Red Sox. And if you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Red Sox ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to LockedOnRedSox.supercast.com to join the club. For those of you on video, I now send you to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio for your second listen, go check out Locked On MLB. Thanks so much as always. Keep the faith, go Red Sox, and I'll catch you on the flip side.